Thank you for coming out and joining us this morning. My name is Ben Keneally. I'm the Executive Director of the Berks History Center. It's my pleasure to welcome you here this morning. The bell tells me I'm right on time. I just have a few announcements here ahead of the program. Our next second Saturday, this is our January program. Our next second Saturday program is called Twisted Mindful Pretzel Consumption. That'll be on January 8th, back here at 10 o'clock, with the great-great-granddaughter of Julia Sturgis, author Jill Marie Thomas. And she'll present a history of America's oldest pretzel bakery, and it includes a hands-on opportunity for participants to try their hands at twisting a pretzel. So that sounds like a lot of fun. I hope we'll see you here for that. We also have another Brunch and Brushes program coming in. If you notice on the table, we have a sample of one of our classes. It wasn't the one I did, I'm not offended, but that's okay, that one's just fine. It's a really great program. If you don't have any art talent, you think, I'm not going to do that program because I don't have any art skill. None of us did. Amber walks us through it. you will have to do it. It is very fun and it is very relaxing to do. So I really encourage you to give it a shot. Tickets go for $30 for members and $35 for non-members, and we can sign you up today. We also have a bus trip coming up here. It's a one-day bus trip. It's BHC crosses the Delaware with Charlie Adams. We're going to be doing that on January 29th from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And so we're going to head over to tour the Washington Crossing State Park Visitor Center Museum, the Washington Crossing Lower Park, and then we're going to go to the New Jersey State Museum, where science, history, and art tell the story of New Jersey's place in the world. And the trip includes a lunch at the historic Lambert Station restaurant, which is actually located in a 19th century train station. And the cost of that trip is $115 per person for members and $125 for non-members. So we got some nice stuff coming up here after the holidays. And if you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, you can stay, current with all the latest stuff that we have coming up. And we also have this and more going into the spring listed on our website. So go over to berkshistory.org and check us out there. And before I turn over the mic, I want to make a plug for membership. You notice on our trip we have member costs and non-member costs. If you're not a member, we can fix that for you today out in the lobby. It will make your holidays brighter. You should do it. And if you are a member, thank you so much for your support. It really means a lot to us. And also, you get a sticker. Nothing beats getting a sticker. So you should definitely do it. Also, in the gift shop, we have some tremendous items that Elise has secured for the holidays in there. So if you're struggling with your holiday shopping, if you haven't started your holiday shopping, we can help you out with that this morning as well. So we're taking care of all your needs here this morning at the Berks History Center. And we also have with us Rick Polityka to do our main event program here from Penn's Common to City Park.
I have a sticker, just so you know.
You got a sticker? I got your notes here, Rick, if you just want me to go for it.
Go for it. Good luck.
Thank you very much for coming today. Please help me welcome Rick Polityka to the podium.
Good morning. Can you hear me pretty well? Okay, that's good. One thing I want to point out is on display up here on the stage, we pulled out a little collage that is from 1905. It was put together in conjunction with the dedication of the McKinley Monument in City Park. And highlighted that collage, if you want to just peruse it a little bit, does have a signed letter from Theodore Roosevelt declining his extended offer to come here for the unveiling of the monument. So it's something well worth looking at. So it's right up here on the front stage here. We put it out to make it a little bit more something hands-on from our collection that you can actually take a look at. So it's nice to see everybody here today. Like I said, I am a member here. I'm a long-time member here, and I'm going to be doing this credit park program on Penn's Common, the City Park, and it's got a lot of slides, but we're going to start with basically the foundation. And if you're going down along Perkiomen Avenue, and you're going to see this sign, and it says, "Given in common to the citizens of Reading in 1748 by the family of William Penn." So we ought to explore what that simple statement means, as maybe a lot of people don't understand what that actually means. Primarily, this land that was at the head of Penn Street in 1748 that the Penns owned, they did not bequeath to the city of Reading. That was still their property, but they allowed the citizens of the town of Reading to use that for their common purpose. Common purpose is a lot of different things. Washing clothes. We had the iron spring in the park that allowed you to wash your clothes there. Keep your livestock there. Whatever you needed to do. Plant vegetables, if you had to do something like that. Whatever you used for the common good of your own, so it wasn't necessarily a park per se, but it was common ground that the citizens could use. So that's really what that statement means. The city did not actually acquire the property from the Penn family until 1800, and as I remember, I believe they bought it for the sum of about $500. So if you have $500, don't expect to buy it today. So again, common use. Okay, here's an artist's description. When I go back with some of that common use, some of the other common uses were, you're gonna find out with the history that we're going to talk about today. It had utilitarian purposes as well as then it became a park per se, because it didn't really become a park that we know it today as for quite a number of years before it was founded. But one of the things that was very common that was done up there was public hangings. And when I look back at my friend Corey back here, who would, or Michelle back here, that would not let me get by without saying something about Susanna Cox being hung in City Park. She was hung in City Park near the site of the former jail in that area there. But the jail actually existed there too as well. You had waterworks, you had the jail. But here, this is a artist's depiction of General Winfield Scott reviewing the troops around the War of 1812. Yeah, he was a veteran of the 1812. This was from 1842, so this was around the Mexican War era time. But this is a depiction of him reviewing troops in Penn's Common at that time. By the time of this depiction, he was also considered the commander-in-chief of the Union Army, of the United States Army. Is my audio okay for everybody? Just to make sure, because I'm trying to talk into this, but I don't want to have this thing squealing at you too, so I have it turned down a little bit. So here is from the passing scene, thanks to George and Gloria G. Miser for that as well. This is, if you're looking at the current layout of the park, you're going to see where some of the original sites were. And the other thing that was popular that was used at the park was also, it was a site, the original site of the Reading Fair. So when you're driving on Constitution Boulevard in City Park today, you're going to be on part of the racetrack. So that's one thing to keep in mind as far as that's concerned. And we look at the reservoirs at the top of Penn Street, and we see the parking lot site. The parking lot site's where the jail used to be. And then the reservoirs are still reservoirs, and they're covered, but we'll get into that a little bit too as well. And we see up in the corner there the greenhouse, and I just saw in the newspaper this morning that there's going to be some effort about getting the greenhouse back in shape and operating again, so that's encouraging news to see also as well. But this is a nice map because this lays out where everything was and pretty much what it looks like now. But this was a map from the 80s because the Play Castle obviously is not there anymore. Here is what the entrance to City Park looked like in a postcard view, as we see the gas light at the very top of Penn Street there. And we can see the different entrance as to when you used to enter into City Park and continue straight up Penn Street into the park. And we see the base of the reservoir wall. We see the jail behind it. I do have a lot of photographs, so some of these I'm going to rapid fire through because otherwise we might be still here at 3 o'clock this afternoon talking about them, so I don't want to do that to you guys. So here's a little bit more overview of it and a little bit different depiction of the park. So this kind of gives you a clear view of what the park looked like with the reservoirs. And this is, my cat allowed me to bring my little pointer in today for him, so I don't wear the batteries out. But if we look up here, this building here pretty much is still intact. This is where the police building that we would know now is basically known. It was known for a while as the police academy, but now it's pretty much known as just a storage facility because that's what it was at that time. And the one thing to keep in mind is with the open water here, these are actually guard shacks where they would have guards in the to watch the water so that no one would pollute the water. So that was also a very big concern. So there was a couple of things that you needed to worry about, but this is a unique, different photograph of it that shows the utilitarian purposes of the park at that time, where it was a house of a jail and it was also a house for the water supply. Different view from looking in. We'll be seeing days like that soon, I guess, perhaps. We have this on here because this is the one piece of Berks County history that's kind of missing. This was the original wall that led into City Park, but we keep our eye on the Hearthstone here. The Hearthstone, when this wall was taken down and they reconfigured the entrance to City Park, that stone wound up in downtown City Hall, and we don't know where it is right now. I don't know if it left the premises or it got misplaced down there, but it seems to be a mystery as to where it is at this point right now. But I'm sure it's somewhere. Here's a different view looking downtown from in City Park. So the buildings across the street to the left-hand side still pretty much look the same. The buildings down Penn Street look the same, but we do see the park theater, which is no longer there. And we don't see the hotel next to it either. Again, just another view. We can see the fountains that were put into the reservoirs as well as the guard booth up there as well. And we see also the original location of the Fireman's Memorial. We'll talk about that as time goes on. Why don't we just talk about it right now then? How about that? This was actually the model for the fireman's image was Chief George Washington Miller, and he was also known as Bob, actually. And that was he was the chief from 1886 to 1915, and like most significant monuments around the city of Reading, this was a P.F. Eisenbrown creation. Gotta make sure not to use my pointer as the clicker, otherwise I have a little bit of a problem with that. One thing that's interesting to note when you see some of these photographs as you go along, because you're going to see some current photographs, this wall here still exists because this is the wall that was the entrance to the jail. But keep an eye out on some of the vegetation because this tree you're going to see as time goes on still exists. Different viewpoint, we can see that when they reconfigured the head of the park and they moved the Fireman's Memorial down further into the head of Penn Street, the fire hydrants that were part of the dressing of this monument went away. The steps to the back, right there, they still exist, but this is a completely different area right now as opposed to what it was before. Different view, and that's seeing those steps. That is the South Reservoir, which currently is still a reservoir, but it's covered. I don't know. Okay, what happened here? Hello? Help? Uh-oh. Camper, help. Help.
The photo's still on your screen, right?
Yes. Should be. What happened here?
On your screen. So
Yeah,
it's,
that's good too.
it's the computer, not the projector.
Uh-oh. Well, I have the other,
There we go.
okay, I don't know.
I think there's two blue slides here before you.
Ah, wow.
I think we're all right.
Okay.
That's why I think the big bucks, folks.
Let me calm down a little bit here. There was nothing wrong with the screen. It's just something I didn't do that I didn't know about. This is a picture from the deconstruction purposes of the jail. The jail was built in 1847. It was designed by Devin Haviland. Devin Haviland was primarily responsible for the design of a lot of jails on the East Coast. Most notably, he was first and foremost in design of Eastern State Penitentiary. That would be what we would know him most for locally here. But he actually had his fingerprints on this, and this was during the deconstruction process after the jail was moved over to its current site over at the Essex Tract in Vernon Township. And when they were deconstructing the jail, they were actually they used the stone from this for Bear Park, Penn, and I believe Schlegel Park field houses. So they repurposed the stone back in the 30s. Yeah, it was a jail from 1848 to 1932, and we'll be talking a little bit about one of the other hopeful proposals of the use of this area. Okay, I have blanks in there for whatever reason. Now I'm not going to get worried about it. This is today what it looks like. Well, obviously not today, but this is current time frame because we don't have that kind of snow out here yet. So, but that's all that's left of the jail area is the steps leading up to it, and then obviously the house that we see in the back that was in the very back. Okay, I don't know why I have that. Here's one of the renovation proposals for the jail after it was vacated and before it was deconstructed. Mary Archer had this drawing submitted for hopefully turning the jail facility into the new home for the Reading Museum. Levi Mangold said under no circumstances is a museum going to ever be housed in a jail. So that was the end of that idea. So that didn't really last too long. I don't know why I have blanks in there, but I do. Anyway, but obviously the park, as you can see in photographs like this, was always a place that you can have public pictures taken. So obviously this is a soldier from World War I that came back. The jail was always an interesting story during World War I. There was the Red Cross drive in December 1917, and the jail had 77 inmates with it at that time, and they got a Gold Star flag at the jail, and everyone, because all the inmates subscribed to the Red Cross during December 1917, which kind of just spells what patriotism was at that time. Even the inmates were all behind it, so. Okay, what is going on here? That is annoying. Again, photographs. This was after some of the beautification process was done in the park. And the beautification process kind of began around like the 1880s. It was spearheaded by the efforts of George Baer, where they wanted to try and dress the park up and make it a little bit more of a public space that people can enjoy as opposed to being utilitarian in its purposes in the beginning. And of course the most famous or most recognizable dressing was the fountain. And it was in between the two reservoirs. You can see the South Reservoir in the photograph behind it. This is, I believe, the original setup of the park, where you actually would get like a tin cup and you would dip your cup into the pool below it, and you get that ice cold spring water, you know, that came fresh from the reservoir. How that would go in the sanitary conditions of today, I don't know how that would work out too well, but at that time that seemed to be perfectly fine. Okay, this is annoying. Okay, this is a photograph. I seem to think, let me just see something here a second, please. Yeah, okay. So this is actually what it kind of looks like more today. These are the coverings that are over the reservoirs. The reservoirs are still functioning reservoirs. The idea of changing the concept was Emil Nubling's idea. He was the head of the water department at that time. And his idea was that why have this open water that you had to guard, actually, when you can cover it and then you don't have to worry about it. And then the covered space can be used for recreation, which is what the park was supposed to be used for in the first place. This is the current building that you saw behind what we always known as the police academy for how long. Now it's basically more as a storage facility, but as you can see in some of those earlier photographs of the park, you saw this standing behind the jail. What is, God, let's see here. I just want to make sure I'm not missing a whole ton of slides in here by doing this. Because if that's the case, we'll take a break. We'll just get the other find out where I'm at. Okay. This was the program for the unveiling exercises of the anchor in City Park, 1914. It was presented to the city by Assistant Naval Secretary Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And this was 1914. And how did we get the main anchor? Well, we were just like any other community that all you had to do was put an application in to get a piece of the main, because when they salvaged the boat, all the parts wound up that they salvaged from the boat were taken to a storage facility in Maryland, and all you had to do was put an application in, and you can get yourself a piece of the main. So we got an anchor, which I think was kind of significant, because I wonder what some of the other pieces were that you would actually get to display in your park. But this was well attended, needless to say, and it was obviously a very popular, this is, okay, gosh. I think I am missing a lot of, so I don't know what happened here. This is my, if you can give me a minute here, I think we're going to just change change to the other laptop, because that has the whole program on it. For whatever reason, my thumb drive doesn't have everything on it. Because I think I'm flying through this thing a lot faster than I anticipated. Sorry about that. Let's see. Until we get someone down. Amber's going to get the other one. Let me just hit, if I hit escape here. Yeah, they didn't download for whatever reason. They're all there, but I am skipping over a ton of slides. So we're going to just get the other computer, We'll be up and running in no time flat. Yeah. Is outreach on it? Yeah, it should be on there. I don't know why that didn't. Because you can see them all. All right. I'll let you do your thing. Sorry about this. I didn't expect this.
Technology is great until it isn't.
Apparently, yeah. Because I did this online a couple times from my computer at home, and I copied it over onto, now that's the only thing I'm a little worried about. Let's just hopefully. Seeing as I use the thumb drive to copy all this stuff over. Oh, you think? Ah.
I just don't think
Well, I guess we get rid of this quick. While they monkey around with that a little bit. Okay, that's. You didn't see this one before. Okay, I think we're back. Okay. Whoa. Now I gotta remember where I'm at here. Let's see. Yeah, I am. Okay, got it. This picture here that we're looking at, this was one of the repurposed sites, I believe. One of the repurposed ideas that was submitted that obviously never became to fruition at the prison site. You see if I can get back into the flow of this a little bit. We did this already, okay? This is that bald cypress that I was pointing out to you a little bit before. This is a younger picture of it, obviously. But this is that same picture. The thing that I look at with this that tells me that is, look at how the trunk is coming out the side of the hill like that. And in this picture, it's kind of doing the same thing. So, once I get myself back into the flow here, because I'm gonna, some of these things I already have seen already, so you've seen them. This gentleman's walking down from what we're going to go up and take a look at, which is the water. Yeah, we missed a whole bunch of stuff here from the problem that we had, technical problem we had there, so I apologize for that. But one thing you notice on this, notice the teardrop lampshades on here. So that's, I think, actually something pretty interesting to look at as well. So this is with the how the South Reservoir looks, or let me think. This one might be the North Reservoir actually, because it's close to St. Joe's Hospital, as you can see in the back. And we can see the tower and the Summit Hotel at the top of the mountain. This is from a glass slide from my friend Chris Miller. He had a whole series of glass slides, and I actually took this with my cell phone, so the picture is actually pretty incredible. This would be the North Reservoir. This is kind of like where the tennis courts are, where I play tennis at today. But you can see the whole, how this was all completely different from what it looks like now. Here we are looking at the reservoir once again. And we see that storage building in the direct center in the back. They put ornamental fountains in the center, to make the park and the beautification process of the park. And we see here to the left, we see that guard shack once again right here. And we see the tower of the jail right there. This is actually a view that if you look right straight down, you're looking down at the South Reservoir. This is like where the basketball courts are, and to the left is where the parking lot is at the basketball court. So it's amazing. The only thing that kind of still exists out of here is these two entrances here down here, and the fencing down along the way. I think we did this one before. We did this one before. The sundial was also another beautification effort that was put into City Park. But one thing, like I said, you look at the pictures of the water. The water was drinking water. So the one thing that they always feared was that someone would go up there and they would put something in the water that would contaminate the water. So that was one thing that was always a fear. You saw the drinking fountain already. This is from the passing scene. Need to get my bearings as to where I'm at. Here we see the second rendition of the drinking fountain, and we see that the tin cups have been taken out, and they put water fountains themselves in to drink from the fountain. So the elk is the only thing that survives. So the original method of drinking water was not exactly acceptable, I guess. Here is pretty much more of a little bit, this kind of gives you an indication that the old and the new have now you see the clock in the center, you still see the guard booth here at the end, you see the reservoirs are now covered because they put pavilions on the cover. This pavilion now kind of sits over here, and this is all open court space. So they even took more of the space for sitting in the middle of the reservoir away that is used for just recreational purposes. And of course, everyone could get a ride on the elk. This was probably towards the end of the days of the elk. The elk, as it was believed, it was taken and melted down for scrap in World War II. But we don't know that for a fact. But that is one of the surmised ideas of what happened. This is a picture with the new fountains in place off of a postcard. Here again we see, this is like where the tennis courts would have been. There were 2 tennis courts on this court, and then we see the clock, the general clock over here at the end in between the 2 reservoirs. This is that one picture that we saw where we saw the guard tower, we saw the 2 little entrance pillars. This is on one of the pillars now, and this was put up after Neil Newbling had passed away, because he was really the one that was behind having the reservoirs covered and had them used for recreational purposes, playground movement. So another one of the pictures on the court, on the reservoir. This appears to be the South Reservoir. Here we actually see the sundial still on the grass, and we also see that we can plainly see now on the reservoirs that they are no longer open water, but they are covered. And we see the Water Authority office here, which dates to the 1850s, and we can actually see in this photograph, you can see where the elk is right here in the center. Steady mother, don't fall. This gives us a little indication of what we did in wintertime activity on the park, because they would be able to freeze it over, so you could actually have a little water on there again. I can't imagine over the years of doing what that did for the surface. Obviously, this practice isn't done anymore because they are finished, and the amount of money they spend on resurfacing these courts for tennis and basketball purposes would just be throwing money away if they kept doing this. So we saw this photograph before. Here is a little bit of activity on the North Reservoir. We see the comfort station from the early 1920s over here, which is still there. And we see a rather aspiring skater there doing his thing. We saw this picture before. Another view of that same building. One more view of the same building. Here's the comfort station. I believe this was built under Mayor Sharman's administration, early 1920s, before J. Henry Stump took over office. Here is the North Reservoir today. Now it's 3 tennis courts. Like I said, when you see how finished they are now, it would be ludicrous to think that you were actually going to put ice over top of that, because that would just ruin these courts really quick. view of the same area. Here is proof that you can still go down and take a look in, well, obviously we can't do that, but someone can go down and take a look at the condition of the reservoirs down underneath the north and south reservoir. So you do see manhole covers still around, and they are still accessible, and that is what is going on in this photograph. Let me just get my notes up to date here. This is the an older picture of the Water Authority building with the steps going up. When they beautified the park in the 1880s, they really did a phenomenal job of beautifying the park. Here we are in the area of the anchor main, but we see a large American flag on the hill below it, and we don't see the anchor main yet at this point. There is the Water Authority building as it looks today. The Berks Conservancy was in here for quite a long number of years also as well. Okay, we saw this, but we didn't see this. We can see the tower of the prison in the background. We can see this was a very popular place to have your photograph taken after it was put in. And we can see in the back on the hill in flowers, water was written there. As you can see, the TER, Department of Water, better known as. So that's the actual what it really looked like. Some of the floral arrangements that were in City Park in the beautification process were second to none, really. Different view of the same thing. And another view. During World War II, the Roll of Honor was put up, where the citizens are heading for those who were serving overseas, and this was the board that was put up behind the anchor main on that on that hill of the reservoir. Current view today at Vernon, looks like it can get some flowers in it. So when you look at it today, I mean, obviously with the amount of work that was put into keeping the park looking like it did before, you know, the manpower to continue doing that is kind of hard to maintain. So they really set the bar high when they did that. You got to keep that in mind. I mean, it's, you know, that was a lot of effort that, you know, for the amount of flowers and the care to keep those flowers looking like they did, you know. So when you look at scenes like this and you remember what was there, keep some of that stuff in mind because there was a lot that went into it. This is from the plaque on the main. Another view of the anchor. The anchor was cleaned up and restored to a degree about, I think about like 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, I think. And there was a little celebration that was in City Park for that too as well. Here we're looking along Perkiomen Avenue. This is along the Monument Row. I believe this is one of the glass slides again from my friend Chris Miller. Here is the Columbus statue. And of course, if we've seen some of the articles that were in the newspaper about the Columbus statue, this was, a model was from Reading, and his name was Jesse Gaiman. Dr. Jesse Mercer Gaiman, to be exact. Dr. Natural Healing. He was the model for Christopher Columbus. There he is. Here is the Union Ringo Light Artillery. All the monuments that went down along the road, down Monument Road, they all kind of fell into place probably within about a 10-year span of each other. The first Defenders Monument was 1901. So this is really the only war monument that is not in Veterans Grove. All the other monuments, as far as those serving in wars over the years, is up in the other corner of the park. But this is the only one that really is not. And that's the roster of the Ringo Light Artillery. We do have in our collection that we have had out on display a collage sort of, or, you know, up in our, sort of like what the McKinley Monument one we had here, in reference to that. And it had some of the veterans actually that were still alive at that time from the Ringo Light Artillery that were there for that ceremony. This is the artist rendition of the McKinley Monument. The McKinley Monument does not look the same here because these eagles are gone. They're not on there right now. I think they might be in storage. I'm not sure of that, but they are not on the pedestal today. But we see the two children in the front. And this was actually, the monument was, McKinley was kind of like highly revered because at the point in time, it was the height of the Industrial Revolution. The policies of McKinley was obviously something that fueled the Industrial Revolution. So when he was martyred, and you got to remember, I mean, I guess for most of us, there weren't that many presidents that died and that were assassinated or killed, and McKinley was one of them. So, you know, if you haven't lived through one of those, you don't know necessarily what that really feels like. Myself, it was Kennedy when I was age 2, but I don't think I remember anything about that, obviously. But yes, McKinley was highly revered because of obviously his policies. So the efforts of churches, citizens, and children raising money for this monument was a large program push that was going on to make this monument become reality. And on the monument, on the front of the monument, the reciting of "Lead Kindly Light," which was the dying president recited the Cardinal Newman hymn in his final moments. This is another picture with children around it, looking like it did in its glory when it was first put in 1905. Another view of it. Still another view, kind of current. We're going to be talking about this tree here in a little bit as time goes on. This is kind of more of a current state of it today. So we still see the children on the front, but we see the urns with the eagles on them are gone. And here's the last words uttered by the president. And that's kind of the current state of it, how it looks today. Here is the tree that I was talking about before. This is a black walnut. This black walnut comes from Mount Vernon. Why is there a tree from Mount Vernon in City Park? Well, there's a reason why. Because in 1932, just like the Angler, Maine, communities around the country could apply for and receive saplings from Mount Vernon. And they were planted in City Park here. We applied for saplings of an elm and a black walnut, and we got them from Mount Vernon, and we planted them. They were supposed to be planted in conjunction with President Washington's 200th birthday, The elm did not survive because the elm blight of the 70s, but the black walnut did. It stands next to the McKinley Monument along City Park, along the Monument Row, if you want to say, along Perkiomen Avenue. Here's where the one fountain would have been at the very end, and the turtle fountain is right down here at the corner. The whole idea about planting trees for George Washington's 200th birthday was that the United States wanted to plant 10 million trees nationally to honor the founding father of the United States. Reading and Berks County, true to their form at that era of time, always exceeded whatever they were asked to do. Reading and Berks County alone planted 1.25 million trees in Berks County by themselves. Half of those went to forest the Oneonta watershed. So when you go through Oneonta, now a lot of those trees have George Washington's idea in mind when they were planted. Frederick Lauer. This is another monument that's a little bit further. He is the founding president of the Brewers Association in the United States. And unfortunately, those plaques were taken at one point in time, but the Brewers Association stepped forward and had them recreated and reassembled on the statue. And there's a little bit more clearer picture of it. It's refreshing not to see blue screens anymore, I have to tell you. One more photograph of Frederick Lauer. See the band shell in the back? What tree is this one? This one is... This is a picture from a long... in the same area. This is a Norway Maple. This was a lot of these photographs, these older photographs I have, are from 1916. They took a lot of pictures of the vegetation, some of the significant trees in the park. This is a Norway Maple, and this is it. This gives you a more clear idea as to where actually that picture was taken. So you can see some of the roadways along. So that's Perkiomen Avenue right below it, heading towards Penn Street. This fountain is below where the current band shell is now. We're going to see a couple of different variations of this area here, because you can see, oh, that's not supposed to be on, that's the other one. You can see the roadway in the back here, and we're going to see a little bit of like Perkiomen down below here. There were a bunch of fountains that were put in the city park. We can see kind of like where the entrance to the jail is. We can get an idea as to where this picture is from. Here we see the McKinley Monument. We see the turtle sculpture, another P.F. Isaac Brown sculpture by their most renowned sculptor was Herman Strecker. And we see the fountain in that area that is now vacant. Here is the headless turtle that we know it has today with the head on it. And we also get to see just the detail that is into this. This is a monument that needs some help. There's no doubt about it. Because you can hardly, the inscription on the side of it today, you can hardly read most of it. That is what it looks like today. But right here you can see it was truly a drinking fountain too as well. This is a Tulip Poplar. This was planted for the veterans of World War I. The original Tulip Poplar was planted on the site of the World War I monument up in Veterans Grove. That tree did not survive but this one was planted in, I believe, in 1922, I believe it was, to supplement the one that did not make it up in Veterans Grove. But this is down more, you can see kind of in conjunction how far up from City Park, from Perkiomen Avenue it is. And the view of our tree that we're talking about. Monuments went into City Park, and then they kind of died a little bit for quite a while, where nothing was getting improved. But then the next big step was the Vietnam Memorials, which was put in the 1980s. And then once the Vietnam Memorial was put in, a whole slew of memorials came in after that, so that we have currently what we look at today. Take a good look at this picture. Take a look at the four buildings very closely, because the next picture I'm going to show is what they look like today. Notice how, I'll go back one and take a look. Notice how this one, just take a look at how the four of these all look. I said I'll go back, there you go. See how this one was really altered. This is the Park Bed and Breakfast. And that is also the home of Jonathan Gould, who owned the downtown Beehive department store and wound up presenting the pagoda to the city of Reading for $1. More current again, the same buildings. Here we are going into Veterans Grove. We can see the amount of different monuments. The most recent one put in was the Persian Gulf War monument that we see right in front. We see World War I, World War II. Gary Spalding, I believe the Gary Spalding one, if I'm not mistaken, he was one of the instrumental people behind the Vietnam Memorial, so that's why he has a monument. This was a Navy veteran of World War II in Korea, who died in 1969. So like I said, at some point in time, a lot of these, George Dinyoung, he died in 2006. I was not able to find much more information as to why these folks actually did get individual monuments. But these were monuments with trees, so not entirely uncommon. I mean, I put a monument in down in Penn for my brother for the tree, and I need to replace the stone on it actually. So, Korean War Veterans Monument. This was dedicated in 1953. This is the Great War. This one was put in, I believe, in 1921. This was the site of the original Tulip Poplar that did not make it. Here is the most recent Persian Gulf War that I believe our President, Mr. Turner, in the back there, presided over.
Yes, sir.
If you didn't believe me, there you go. This one is the Women's Veteran Memorial Dedication, 1999. World War II. I believe this is for the American Revolution, if I'm not mistaken. Dedicated in 2009. Here's the memory tree. It's a little bit different, and it's not that far away, but they did kind of move the stone a little bit because this is where it is now. So it's kind of went in a different direction. Centennial tree, 2020. I believe this is 9/11, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, they did put a bunch of memorials up here over the years. War on Terror. You wanted to go to the pagoda from City Park, you could, but it was quite a few steps. If you wanted to get your steps in for the day, that was a good place to do it at. And here is the entrance to Duryea Drive, going up Mount Penn. But we're not leaving the park yet, but this would have been how you would have been leaving the park, heading up Duryea Drive. Or better known as Mount Penn Boulevard. This monument I found, this was the American Hellenic Educational Progressive Association. It was founded to fight for civil rights against discrimination, bigotry, and hatred felt by the hands that Ku Klux Klan. That was interesting when I saw that, because I didn't know what that actually was. It was just the letters, but then I did a little research and found out what that was all about. That's sitting kind of like in between Veterans Grove and the band shell. It's kind of like sitting out in the middle of the field, in between there, amongst the trees. So now we're looking at, actually in this picture, can't tell you too well, but there's a lot of lilies, but this is the lily pond. So, let's see. We're getting there. Okay. Still looking at the lily pond. We can make it out a little bit more clearly now in this picture. We see on the other side here, we see the iron spring here. This was the source of water where people used to go to wash their clothes. And you could skate on the lily pond too. And you could really skate on the lily pond. I always kind of like this picture because this kid hamming it up for the photograph right in front. But we see St. Joe's Hospital clearly in the background. Before the band shell, there was the band Pavilion. The band Pavilion sat right in front of Iron Spring, kind of in the same area. So it sat on the opposite side where the band shell was. And this gives you a clear view because these steps still exist. There's the iron spring right behind it, and here is where the band pavilion was, the bandstand. There is the iron spring. Another view of same such. The pond is lower now, so you can walk a little further in. This is before there was steps actually put in there too. Wintertime view of the same site. Another wintertime view of the same site. I believe this one is courtesy of the passing scene. Same site once again. This is actually, if anyone remembers the World War I program that I put together on the Liberty Chorus in August, I guess, of 1918, the Liberty Chorus would perform in City Park to the tune of about 10,000 people coming to see them perform. The Liberty Chorus did patriotic singing during to keep the patriotism alive for the Great War while Berks was involved in the Great War. And the thing that was interesting about that was, now this isn't from that episode obviously, but when you had 10,000 to 15,000 people crammed into the park, it kind of had to look a lot like this because that was where they performed at. And when you talk about 10 to 15,000 people on a Sunday afternoon in City Park, we don't think too much about that, but laws of the day prohibited people from gathering for any kind of functions at that time, so of any sort. So it was not uncommon to read in the newspaper of the day that 19 men would be arrested for violating the blue laws because they were playing baseball. But something like this would have been able to happen. So this is actually, I do know what this is from. This is from the McKinley Monument dedication in 1905. But you can see the amount of people that were crammed into the park for this. Fireman Memorial Band Shell, City Park. We'll see a couple photographs of this. This was put in 1939. This was a WPA project. If it's a public building and it was built in 1939, the chances that it was a WPA project are very, very strong. This is from the opening dedication, I believe. This is during World War II. Commencement exercises. A lot of commencement exercises for school graduations were held in the park as well. This is kind of what it looked like before it was renovated in the early late 80s, early 90s. And this is kind of what it looks like today. They made the pond in front of it smaller, and they put a little bit more natural vegetation around the pond. So they kind of changed the scenery of it a little bit. And there are some inhabitants in that pond, and quite a few of them, I might add that. Lots of turtles. So where this course is at, we are near the Rose Garden area, and the road that we see in front, that's Constitution Boulevard, which would have been part of the old racetrack from days when the fair was in City Park. Here was the spring house, not that far from the greenhouse, and the greenhouse and the rose garden. Here's another view of the same. The architect for this pavilion was Alexander Forbes Smith, and we would know him more prominently from designing the 1900 corner version of Pomeroy's. Another view, you see the greenhouse in the background. One more view. And here's a view of it looking towards St. Joe's Hospital. Then when they took it out, they put this spring house pavilion in instead. And I believe these are Norway Maples. Yes, these are Norway Maples that he planted in here also. This is kind of the same area. We see the end of the greenhouse right here, but we're looking kind of like right up towards where the spring house used to stand at that point. And this is the Dove Rock down here that was put in the early 70s. Some of these trees could be some of those Norway maples that are left over. I guess these pictures are just to remind everyone we did have some snow last year. 1972, the Dove Rock. The bomb shelter. No tour of City Park would not be complete without the bomb shelter. Inside it, it still looks the same. I was jealous one day. I had a few pictures from my friend Michelle Lynch, and she sent me this picture as one of them. Those are the sleeping bags still in the bomb shelter, still in their plastic, ready for use whenever the Cold War comes and hits Reading. This is also inside the bomb shelter.
What is that?
I'm not sure.
There's something about sanitation.
Michelle, you got a clue on that one?
I can't remember anymore. I have to log in a
We'll come up with it. Yeah, it looks like it says something sanitation, but that was stuffed inside there. Here is the original configuration of the greenhouse. It does not look like that anymore. The one that they replaced it with kind of resembles it, but it certainly is not the same building. I guess the stone base kind of makes it think that it is the same, but it's by no means the same building. But this is the original greenhouse. Floral arrangements were designed here as well. This is this is from that glass slide view from my friend Chris Miller. This is the back end of the original greenhouse, what it looked like. And we have this photograph because that shows the back end of it also, but it also shows the tennis courts. This was the original spot of tennis courts when Emil Dubling had the reservoirs covered over. That was one of the first things they moved over. They put the tennis courts over onto the reservoir, and they moved them away from here. But you can see some of the nets here for the tennis courts. And here they are. Here's the three. There are 3 courts. These places, this all still does exist. So you're going to see a picture coming up. Keep an eye on this little knoll here in the back. And because I'm going to be having a photograph coming up that's going to be in the exact same spot. So there's the little knoll right there. It's always fun to do this with. So the flats are still there primarily. It's just they need to be cleared off, and you can probably have tennis courts back there again if you wanted to. Grass courts. Here's a picture of the Rose Garden in its heyday, probably back in the 40s. And here is a postcard that said such. We see it in conjunction with the spring house here, and then the greenhouse will be in the back. This was the Policeman's Memorial. That's right, kind of in that same neighborhood. No talk about City Park would be not complete without all the marbles championships over the years. Those are the marble courts. Reading times, 1,050 Nazi bombs dropped from Paris, 45 killed, but we do have the Reading Marbles champion also up there. So there is some important news, information there on the front page of the paper. Another view of the marble, where they are along Constitution Boulevard. See all those war saving stamps in his pocket? interesting picture of a city park. Everyone's sitting around enjoying their time. Heading into the park. This fountain is down at 11th and Walnut Streets, if I'm not mistaken. This is another view of the same fountain. All these fountains were removed as time went on. So that beautification process lasted, for, I guess, as repair became more and more necessary for some of these things, they were taken out. Same fountain. Quite a beautiful fountain, though, with that. And we remember the Kitty Castle from the 1970s. That was taken out just recently also as well. We got a little bit of vegetation pictures. The photographs here are from 1938. Here is the Maine with the flower of the U.S. flag, Department of Water in the back. That's at 11th and Walnut Streets, heading into the park. We just saw a reverse view of this in black and white, without the floral arrangement. This is the site of where that fountain was that I had shown you before at the base of below the lily pond. We see the tennis courts in the background. So this is the North Reservoir. Panoramic view of the greenhouse, the spring house, the prison. And I say thank you. Thanks for putting up with the little mix-up in the middle there, but technology sometimes is not a fun thing. So thank you very much. Any questions? Yes?
What did they do with the fountains that they dismantled? What did they do with it?
They dismantled them. I mean, they just all of a sudden disappeared. I mean, I didn't find any kind of evidence. Researching some of that stuff is a little bit, you almost have to find out what had happened and try and pinpoint as to what the reason was. I'd have to imagine that maintenance probably have something to do with it, without a doubt, because they were quite exquisite, a lot. And you had a bunch of them too, as well as that. So you had the plumbing to worry about and maintaining the fountain. So, there was a lot of that stuff. Yes?
When did Penn's Common stop being Penn's Common and Easton Park?
Well, the more and more as it came, it started as Penn's Common. Probably a lot of that started changing when the city took over ownership of it. And I think that's pretty much where it started. It didn't have an official date where it just kind of went away. I think it kind of was something over gradual, just kind of like stopped being called Penn's Common and started being called City Park.
Because I noticed if I took photos down there, that it shows up as Penn's Common.
Yeah, well, the name is still, you can still call it that today, and no one can correct you on that, because that's still technically what it is, so. Yes, sir?
Emil Newbling, is that the same guy who had Newbling Sporting Goods?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Nice try, though. But I don't know that one for a fact. You might have a point about
The
that.
reason I ask, I wonder if it was the same guy, if he was thinking by covering up
The profile would fit. That is something that I think
Sporting Goods.
I know the guy that's the archivist over there. I think maybe I'll have to go talk to him about that, see if we can figure something out about that.
All right.
Yes?
For those of you who are interested, Rick taped the BCTV program for the month of December, and you can find that on our YouTube channel. We did 2 parts. so you could actually walk around with us in City Park. The second part will air in April, the first Wednesday in April. And then whenever Earth Day is scheduled, I'm sure he will be doing another walking tour of City Park.
Yes, I did a walking tour back in June, which worked out really well. And all things considered, for how choppy we did that filming that day, when I watched it, it actually came out pretty good.
We filmed it during the day so that there would be kids at the basketball court and we were being chased around by the mowers.
Yeah, we tried to stay ahead of the mowers the entire time, and a lot of this. A lot of that, that's for sure. Yes?
You showed the houses on Hill Road where the bed and breakfast is, but how can I learn more about the other houses on that part across from the park and their history?
You want to learn more about the houses that are on that? Well, deed search is a good way to start, doing a deed search on the properties, and then you can find out who owned them and go back that way and you can find out about when they were built. Because usually, either a parcel or with the deed search, one of the two, one of those two searches, you should be able to get back pretty far as to who built it. Yes, I see a hand back there.
Just to add to that, I was going to say at the Johnson Library next door, we can help with that, because we get questions like that all the time.
Yes, he knows the archivist over there, so. Yes.
Our ancestors in the late 1700s, who lived close to Penn, talking about my own ancestors, walked up to City Park with buckets to get their drinking water.
Yes.
Where deer roam freely.
Deer do still roam pretty free.
Absolutely around here.
My deer.
Well, so it wasn't to give you a home where the buffalo roamed, in other words, what you're saying. It was where the deer roamed. But yes, they do. Yes, they do. Any other ones? Well, then I say thank you very much. And once again, thank you.